Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, September 24th, 2015. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week we visit Black Apple Crossing, the first modern cidery in the state of Arkansas. We'll sample 4 ciders in their tasting room in downtown Springdale and get some tips on how to make our own tasty ciders at home. If you're new to home brewing or would like to get into the hobby for the first time, check out our website, basicbrewing.com, where you can find archives of our audio and video podcasts and our DVDs to walk you through basic and more advanced brewing techniques. And if you buy any of our DVD combos, you get a free Basic Brewing bottle opener. You can follow me on Twitter. My username is Basic Brewing, all one word. We also have a Basic Brewing Radio and Basic Brewing Video page on Facebook at facebook.com/basicbrewing. We're on the Google Plus as well. Thanks again to everybody clicking on the Amazon.com associate link on our basicbrewing.com site. Whenever you think of Amazon shopping, think of us and click on our associate link first. It won't cost you any extra, and you'll be helping us to bring you this show, and we greatly appreciate your support. We also have associate links for Brew Your Own Magazine and the American Homebrewers Association on our site as well. You can find our Basic Brewing iPhone app on iTunes or Android app on Amazon.com. We have a Windows Phone app. We're on the BlackBerry Podcast Directory, and we're on the Stitcher app as well. If you want to put a tip in our tip jar, some coinage in our guitar case, you can go to basicbrewing.com/support, and thanks to everybody who's done so already. Well, the feedback continues to come in about my mysterious low gravity or high finishing gravity 100% Vienna Oktoberfest. Chris from Smyrna, Tennessee, shares an experiment that he did comparing 3 different base malts. Chris says, I wanted to do 3 single malt beers with the same hop bill, same boil time, and same yeast. The only difference was that each one was a single base malt, Pilsner, Vienna, and Munich. I have an electric brew-in-a-bag system that I built several years ago. It's fairly similar to the one you use, except mine does not do continuous recirculation. I used 10 pounds of Pilsner malt and mashed at 152 degrees Fahrenheit for 75 minutes. Did a mash out, boiled for 90 minutes with a single bittering charge, and then some Tettnanger and Hallertau hops added to the no-chill cube. I did the exact same thing with Vienna malt, 10 pounds, and then Munich malt, a light Munich, by the way, says Chris. I let all 3 cubes chill for 2 days while I made a large starter of WLP 029 Kolsch yeast. I really like this yeast. I've been using it heavily since reading about it on brewlosophy.com. Chris says 2 days later I racked the 3 cooled worts into fermenters, leaving the tube behind in the no-chill cubes, and pitched an equal amount of the starter into each fermenter. I fermented all 3 fermenters in my deep freezer at 60 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 week, then ramped up to 68 degrees for 1 more week. After 2 weeks had passed, I kegged all 3 beers. Like you, I noticed less attenuation with the Vienna version of the experiment, and I know for certain that every single variable in this experiment was identical except the type of base malt. Chris says, here are my numbers. Pilsner, starting gravity, 1053, ending gravity, 1010. Vienna, starting gravity, 1052, ending gravity, 1012. And Munich, 1052, original gravity, 1011. Final gravity. When tasting these beers, Chris said, the Pilsner does taste more bitter because it has the least residual sugars. The Vienna tastes the sweetest and least bitter. The Munich is just about in between the other 2. I did this experiment, Chris says, because I wanted a really good idea of what each of these base malts tasted like on its own, and I thought it might be fun to blend the beers into different proportions to get an idea of what I might like as a good combination for an Oktoberfest or some other beer. I've brewed a number of Oktoberfests searching for the right combination of grain bills. It's a good idea. Interestingly, Chris says, I really like the single malt Vienna beer all by itself as an Oktoberfest. My wife likes 2 parts Vienna to 1 part Munich. Both versions are really tasty, though the Vienna only is markedly sweeter. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate the info. Very interesting stuff. I kegged my beer on Monday and took another gravity reading. The final gravity is still pretty high, but the good news is it tasted pretty good. It's fairly dark, which has me wondering if in my hurry to get the grain at the homebrew store whether I weighed out the wrong kind of malt. I told you I don't have any experience with Vienna malt. Did I get 10 pounds of Victory instead of 10 pounds of Vienna? I have to do some more research. I'm going to do some steeping to take a look at what might have happened. Oy. It's a brewing disaster story that is unfolding in front of our eyes. The good news, the one thing that was not disastrous was my brew day with my electric brewing system from our sponsors, Desiree and Dave from High Gravity in Tulsa. If I picked the wrong kind of grain, it's not the system's fault. The system did great. As you know, I have the single vessel brew in a bag system, but High Gravity also offers more traditional 3-tier electric brewing systems. The Build Your Own Electric Brewing System feature on HighGravityBrew.com lets you customize your system to fit your needs. High Gravity offers systems that can brew 5 gallons all the way up to 2 barrels. You can choose from a variety of controllers that control your heat and your pumps. Pick the one that is right for you. And for ingredients and many other products, High Gravity offers $7.99 flat rate shipping. You can check it all out at HighGravityBrew.com. And I'm hearing from brewers out there who have gotten the High Gravity electric brewing systems. Very cool. I hope that you're as happy with yours as I am with mine. Okay, as you have heard on this show, Northwest Arkansas is experiencing a lot of growth in the craft brewing scene. We have interviewed representatives from many of the new local breweries. Today we're going to have a commercial cidery. Arkansas used to be a hub of apple production back in the day, and Trey Holt and his partners at Black Apple Crossing Cidery in Springdale, Arkansas, are hoping to inspire a reestablishment of local orchards. But Trey Holt, welcome to Basic Brewing Radio.
Hi, glad to be here.
Where are we at?
We're at Black Apple Crossing, downtown Emma Street, Springdale.
And this is a cidery, and it's the first cidery that I've ever been in, which is very exciting. And I guess this is kind of a rare thing in Arkansas nowadays.
Yeah, it's actually the first modern cidery in the state.
Now, Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas especially, has a history of apple production. Back in the day, they said at one point that West Washington County was apple orchards just as far as you could see. So you are kind of reviving a bit of history in this part of the world.
We actually hope to be a huge part of the revival of the apple industry in Northwest Arkansas. We're currently working with a couple local orchards and trying to get a locally produced product.
So how difficult is that? I mean, how many acres do you need to run a successful cidery and just be sustainable from the local agriculture?
Unfortunately, we're trying to figure that out at the moment. We've figured out quickly that there's not enough acreage up here that's available at the moment of the particular apples we want, especially black apples. We'd like to make a pure black apple cider, but there's just not that many around for us to press.
And you can't just start up an orchard one day and have apples the next. It takes a little planning.
It's about a 3-year process to get to the production level you need. So we're actually working with a couple that are actually starting their own orchards, and we're getting into the varieties that we want to get. So maybe in 3 years we'll have an actual sustainable product we can have.
Now, is it the Arkansas Black? Is that one of the ones that you're looking at?
Yes, the Arkansas Black that's where our name's from, and because it was cultivated in the area, and we'd like to just hone in on that heritage.
So, where do you get your apple juice from now?
Currently, we get it from Washington State. They're specially picked for us and cold pressed. They ship them on freight trucks to us. Within 3 days, they're pressed in Washington. We're fermenting them here.
And what varieties are you guys looking for from them?
There's several varieties, but mainly there's 3 separate varieties. There's what's called dessert apples, where you get most of your sugar content from. There's also called picker apples, which are in between of the two. That's going to get your balance from them. And then there's bittering apples, like crab apples and stuff, that actually bring out a bittering flavor, so it's not overly sweet. So get a little tart flavor.
So the apple cider that you generally see in the grocery store, what flavor profile would that be? Just for drinking cider.
Those commercially are mostly dessert apples and a lot from concentrate as well. That's why they're mostly overly sweet. We tried to stay on the drier side to give people what cider used to be compared to the commercial cider you get today. So
did you have to, what was your research into, did you have to do a lot of history, or did you have to do a lot of research into kind of the background of the whole cider, the hard cider, so to speak, making industry?
Oh yeah, I was an avid home brewer, I guess, at the beginning. Lots of beer. I had a few open taps. I built a bar in the back of my house, me and a partner, Leo, and we had open taps, and we're like, man, we need to fill these with something. What are we filling with? We always did the English style beers, so we focused on cider because that's a huge thing from the England. We started researching and getting into it, and the more I got into it, everybody that we tried and loved it, and they're like, man, this is better than your beer. And I was like, oh, that's terrible. That's my beer's and my pride, So eventually I took it, and we just ran with it. And we did a lot of research, reading, a lot of asking questions. Called anybody that would let me call them and talk to me.
So it is a balance. You are trying to get a product that isn't too sweet and isn't too tart, and so are you able to, with the Washington producers, kind of specify your own blend between those?
That's where we're having the trouble. A lot of them are just your typical dessert, red delicious, golden. That's where we're needing to find the extra blends that aren't currently available. Most of the orchards around here have kind of gone to the wayside that had those nice varieties that were local, and that's what we're trying to bring back and have farmers bring back.
So there are apple beers out there now. You see them advertised, and you see ciders. How does your product differ from the mass marketed? An apple hits the side of a guy's head in the bar, those kinds of cidery kind of adult beverages that you see on the market today.
Ours are more on the craft side. On the cider, it's a dry cider. We have a semi-sweet, but even our semi-sweet isn't near as sweet as what you'd pick up on the shelf at a liquor store or anything.
So I haven't tried many commercial ciders because I don't like them.
Right.
They're just sickeningly sweet, and they're more alka-pops than something that I wanted to drink. But we've got 4 samples in front of us. And my silent partner Susan is here sitting next to us. She probably won't say anything. Where should we start here, Trey?
We actually can start with the El Carino.
Which one is that?
That's one you have.
Oh, okay.
That's our semi-sweet. That's going to be the closest to the commercial cider that we have. It's still about half as sweet as a typical cider. It has a agave nectar base to it to re-sweeten it. We let almost all of our ciders go to completely dry to give that good balance.
It's good. It's fairly tart. It tastes like an apple. You've tasted, I assume, unsweetened and then back sweetened.
Oh yes.
How much of an impact does the agave nectar have on it?
Actually, it's a huge impact. We tried just actual sugar, and it turned out not so great. It was a tart, but the sweetness was separate from the actual drink. It was like a sweet kick and then tart. It didn't blend well. We tried honey. The honey wasn't so kind to the apple. Kind kind of overtook the flavor. Agave nectar has a really soft flavor on it, so you get the apple flavor and it doesn't mask it.
That's really tasty. And what's the ABV on this?
It's 8.4 on the El Carino.
And it's very clear. Let's talk about this. Use this one to talk about your process. This is, again, the first cidery, the commercial cidery that I've been in. So it looks a little different from any brewery that I've seen. There's still stainless steel, but it's not. Doesn't look like there's as much heat.
We have no brew kettles, no heat supplied at any point, no pasteurization. The yeast do all the work for us, pretty much. It goes from apple juice, that's inoculated with yeast, and then it's racked several times. The racking is a clarifying process. It also helps us stop the yeast if we want to keep some residual sugar. And then we pump it up and carb it.
And you do filter it, though. I mean, this is crystal clear.
This is our only filtered we have on site. The other ones are unfiltered. That was just kind of us playing with our filtration.
And do you have to do any kind of stabilization?
Currently, no. We don't add anything else except yeast to the product. Yeah.
And what yeast do you use?
Mostly champagne yeast. I've been collecting yeast for about 5 years now, just from apples and other things, just trying to get a natural yeast. It has not turned out well. Most of them do not do a good job of fermentation. Other bacteria will take over. They're not very strong, especially once they get up to alcohol. The alcohol pretty much kills them off. They're not strong. So mostly a good champagne yeast. You can get at any local brewery. We actually started out getting at the homebrew store in Fayetteville.
The home brewery.
Yes, the home brewery. Yes.
Where I got my start. And you have a lab background, right?
Correct. I'm a microbiologist currently. Me and another partner are both microbiologists.
So how did y'all come together?
Me and a friend, Leo, we started working at the Dickens Street Liquor about 8-9 years ago. From there, we started brewing our own beer in the backyard. I moved, got a new job, and became a lab rat, if you will, and kind of got into the science of it a lot more, the yeast cultivation, the pH, and all that, and kind of geeked out on the beer side.
And you guys have come together. This is in downtown Springdale. This is the renovated. This used to be the George's Poultry headquarters and hatchery, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And next door, across the parking lot, is the old original Tyson headquarters and hatchery. And so, how much work did you have to do to get this is a charming tasting room here. It really is cool. You've been able to retain a lot of the original like brickwork and woodwork, and it really is neat. Talk about the work that you had to do to get it to where you are now.
When we first saw the building, it was almost in dire straits. It was pretty much close to being condemned at that point. There was just molded drywall. It was terrible. Just us three, we tried doing most of the work ourselves, ripping out drywall, putting up walls, everything except concrete work and plumbing, electrical things that had to be. But everything else was just us, and it took a little over a year to get this place from where it is now. It still needs a lot of work, but it came together pretty nicely.
And what's been the response from the public?
It's been overwhelmingly positive. Did not expect this kind of traffic in downtown Springdale. But everybody in Springdale has just embraced us, and it's actually been a huge community effort, and people have come out, and they've loved it. Been surprisingly and awesome.
Now, it's been a while since I've been to downtown Springdale, and they've done a whole lot of work in beautification and putting trees up, and the city is I assume it's been the city. It's been, but they've done a lot of work to make it a really kind of inviting downtown, which is really cool because it had been neglected in years past. But you're near the train station, which I guess may be a part of the name.
Crossing, yes.
So people can take excursions down through the mountains to Van Buren and such. And so it seems like you're well positioned
and right off the bike trail. The bike trail is right behind us, and it kind of loops around the park and goes right through downtown.
Cool, yeah. We've got, it's turned into the Chamber of Commerce of Northwest Arkansas here, but we've got, 37 miles of bike trail from Fayetteville all the way up to Bella Vista, isn't it?
Yeah. It goes all the way, yeah. Love biking. Before this kind of consumed my life, I was big into mountain biking, and that was always exciting to go and stop at the breweries on the way on the bike trail. So that's one of the reasons we picked this place, because we knew the bike trail plan was here and the revitalization was coming in. It was just a good time for us to get down Springdale.
So what should we try next?
Next would be the Bellini. It's a dry cider. It's purely made with champagne yeast, all the way down to dry, and then we mix it with mango peach nectar.
Oh boy, that's good. Now you mix it with the mango peach nectar at serving time, right?
Correct. It's like a garnish. It's after you pour it off the tap, it's poured on top.
So if you use champagne yeast and you ferment all the way to dry, what is your starting gravity, and what's the ABV that you're shooting for?
The ABV we're shooting for is about 7. And that's what we're shooting for. Obviously, we get around it, but not hit it perfectly. Hence that 7.4. The starting gravity on it kind of depends on each load. It varies every time we get apples in. We had one that was around we do a brie, we don't do ABV. Right. So at the end, we do a distillation to get our alcohol content. With cider, it's a little different because there's residual sugars that don't ferment out. It gives you a false reading if you do it with a hydrometer.
Interesting.
If you're doing a homebrew, you're going to get really close. For us, it's a legal issue, so we have to get dead on. For that, we have to use distillation. So we're not really that concerned with the starting brie. I just want to make sure I'm having enough sugar in the juice when it comes in so I can get to my alcohol point. Other than that, we're not really concerned about the hydrometer levels or anything.
Have you played around with, like in your home brewing career before this, did you play around with other yeast strains? Like, for instance, I've only made cider a couple of times, and I used Saf Ale USO5, which is, the California ale yeast basically, and it came out with a fairly sweet cider that was really tasty, but it was a bit flabbier, as Steve would say, than these, because it was using the store-bought, kind of more sweeter cider.
Right.
So have you played with other yeast strains before you arrived on champagne yeast?
I've actually been collecting yeast for some years now, just off of fruit and stuff, cultivating it in culture, petri dishes and stuff, growing it back up. Most of the natural yeasts do not bold well in cider. They let other things take over. Lactic fermentation will happen and get some little sourness and stuff. The champagne yeast had all the qualities and the boldness, and it had the, I'm trying to say it could survive in the higher alcohol content. So we didn't have to nurture the cider as much. It's just pretty much did everything we wanted to do without having to put extra stuff into it. We didn't want to have to put extra nutrients into it. We don't want to have to add sulfites. The sulfites was a huge thing for me. I wanted to be as sulfite as free as I could. Obviously, yeast will produce some sulfites on their own, but we try to not put anything but yeast and apple juice.
Now, do you aerate? Do you put oxygen in the cider?
We do. We aerate just before adding the yeast, and after that, you don't want to have oxygen content in the product after that. The CO2 will pretty much flush that out after the yeast start kicking up.
And then post-fermentation, talk about the steps. You said you had a bright tank downstairs, right? That you said it was horizontal Why was your bright tank horizontal?
Yeah, most brewers you see a vertical bright tank makes sense. It has less headspace. You can use less CO2 to carb it. We had a horizontal one. We could actually artificially age the cider by adding different gases into the mix for different periods of time. We can do about a month of aging, false aging, in a week time.
Wow. And what gases are we talking about? Or is that a trade secret?
Trade secret.
Well, we know it's not oxygen.
It is not oxygen. There's some nitrogen in it, but
it's not hatchery air. Well, cool. That's interesting. So how, without the artificial aging, how long, say, if you're a home brewer and you're producing cider at home, or how did you age cider at home when you were a home brewer?
Depends on what you want to get. If you want to get a clear cider, you're going to go 9 months about to get a really clear cider, to get the flavors you want to come out. I never did that. I don't have the patience for that. So I want it now. About a 3-month process I went to. You get some of the cloudiness, but I always did it in the corny kegs, so I could crash cool it, drop a lot of the yeast and solids out, so there's not as much. If you start with the clear cider, then your end product comes a lot faster than if you start with the unfiltered cider. So if you go to the store and buy unfiltered, unpasteurized cider, you're going to need to age it longer. You're going to get a much better flavor profile from those, though.
So you want trying to get a list of homebrewer tips here.
Sorry.
You want unpasteurized, unfiltered, and with no
preservatives.
No preservatives. That's the word. So, are there any brands that you prefer over others, as far as that's concerned, or?
It's been a while since I've shopped around for those. Every cider you're going to get in the commercial stores has been pasteurized, just due to legal issues and listeria and stuff. There are some presses up in Missouri that have unfiltered, fresh juice. I got a couple of those, about 5-gallon jugs of those back in the day, and they actually were a much superior cider than the others. The store-bought stuff is fine. You're going to get a bit sweeter cider. It's going to have that kind of appley aroma, but not much apple flavor to it.
That's interesting. I was talking to someone out at Appletown, which is out in Lincoln, which they still have an apple festival, even though there's not a single apple grown in town. I think it's the first weekend of October every year. But they have cider, and they sold apples there and stuff. And she was saying that they had their cider pressed in Missouri because they didn't want to pasteurize and so they actually had their jugs of cider frozen. Yeah. So that I guess you're guaranteed that nothing's going to start out and take off
take
accidentally.
Off your cider, yeah. The freezing the cider, it actually doesn't affect it much at all. It actually, if I could, I would freeze everything before I started. Yeah, just so you don't get any lagging bacteria in that could compete with your inoculated yeast.
Interesting. So now we're up to sample number 3, right?
Yes. This would be the DGX. This is the completely dry cider taken down. It's just champagne yeast again. That's the base that we had for the Bellini. It's tart. We had one that was called Dry Guy. It was not near as tart as that. It was a little bit softer, but we haven't really honed down our batch size yet. We've only been open a month, so we didn't know the public was how they were going to respond to us. They responded better than we were expecting, so we're trying to play a little catch up.
That's also very good. Now it's cloudy.
Yes.
Now remind me so the first one was filtered.
Yes, that's all. The The Imperial is the only one that we've had a filtration on. It was not sterile filtered, but it did go through some filtration. Everything else unfiltered, straight from the vats.
Now, how do you handle? I assume you distribute.
We do not distribute.
Oh, you don't. So everything is sold here.
All here. Yeah, this is the only place you can get our cider currently.
Do you plan to distribute one day?
We do. Hopefully, at the end of the year, we're trying to get out to some bars and restaurants.
So, how do you handle stabilizing your product at that point? I mean, because once it leaves here in kegs, you don't know where they're going to put those kegs. You don't know what temperature they're going to hold them at. There's. Tell me if I'm wrong. But
No, you're completely correct on that. Since we do use some back sweetening, especially with the El Carino, we have the agave nectar, which has sugars that can re-ferment. We have to go through a 2-stage filtration. First stage basically gets out the pectin and other clouding agents, and the last stage gets out the yeast. It's a sterile filtration, so their yeast can't reactivate if they become warm and won't blow kegs or anything.
So you will only be distributing filtered product to other places?
Correct, yeah. Okay. It's just too risky not to have some sort of filtration on them. Unless we have like the DGX that's completely dry, there's not much residual sugar. I'm not really concerned about that rewarming or anything, but something like the El Carino, definitely.
So these don't seem like they're sparkling. Is either that or these? Well, these have been sitting a while. But do you carbonate? And what level do you carbonate? And how do you handle that in the serving environment?
We do carbonate. It's very light carbonation. Cider doesn't have the body that beer does to hold the carbonation, so it evaporates out very quickly. We have special taps to hold it in a little bit longer, but even at that, if you let it set for more than 5-10 minutes, it's gone. Most ciders are considered a still wine, actually. They can have a residual CO2, but not much over that. We put about 20 pounds of pressure onto it, and that doesn't even keep it up where you would have a beer, like the head on a beer. We do get a head because of our taps, but again, the CO2 just doesn't stay in it.
But all those commercial ciders are sparkling. What's the deal?
Yeah, a little advertisement there, TV trickery. Yeah. If you get any cider off the shelf and pour it into a glass, you're going to see it sparkle and get that effervescence. And that's pretty much all you're going to really get with ciders. It's that effervescence that you're going to try to obtain. But after that, it goes flat.
So you are in a way, not a victim of, but you are kind of at the mercy of the market as far as what's available for your raw product, right? I mean,
correct, yeah.
You can't. It's not like you can't buy apple futures, or I guess you might, but they might be a good year for one kind of apple, or a bad year for another kind of apple, or. But in a way, that's kind of the charm of the whole thing.
It is. That's why I love it so much, because year to year, you're going to have a different product. That's not typically what you want for a market product, but I think people will embrace the craft that we're trying to instill in the area and embrace that, there might be a bad year for one type of apple and a good year for another, and that's going to impact our flavor tremendously. And I think that's a positive on that. It's going to give us a different flavor profile year to year and a little bit of unique twist on it.
What do we got here? What's the last sample?
The last one is a Spice of Life. It's infused with cinnamon and clove. It gives almost like a nostalgic feeling, Christmas time, something like that. In the wintertime, we're actually going to have a version of this that's served hot.
That's delicious. What do you... Okay, go back to your homebrewer roots.
Oh yeah.
If if a homebrewer wanted to make a nicely spiced cider like this, give us the basics.
This is actually one of the things that actually started off with homebrewing is the spice cider. It just reminded me of what my mom made back when I was younger. So we had just cinnamon cloves. I tried just putting it in the alcohol and letting it set. You got some clove in there, but cinnamon didn't do anything. I found out very quickly heat was something that just had to be done for that. And normally cider you don't heat at all. I actually went to pressure cooking it to get even more of the oils from the spices out, and it made a huge impact on the flavor profile. And that's where I got this concoction from.
So did you heat the entire must or just the, I mean, you guys say must, right?
Right. Yeah.
So did you heat the entire must or just like a part of it and reinfuse it, or how'd you work it?
A very small portion of it. If you heat cider, you're going to get some caramelization from the sugars. Most of the time I'd use distilled water and heat that so I didn't harm the cider itself.
So how much, if you're doing like a 5-gallon batch of cider, how much spice do you put in?
Not much, because doing it with the pressure cooker, a little goes a long way. If you're doing a 5-gallon batch, I would say probably 3 cinnamon clove sticks and just maybe a tablespoon of cloves. It impacts it a great deal.
Yeah, you can definitely overdo spice in a hurry.
Yeah.
as I've done before.
Just like hops or anything else, it's easy to go that extra mile. You're like, I really want those flavors, and overdo it quickly.
Yeah, this is very holiday-ish. It's this would go really well also with like an apple pie.
Yeah, that's basically what we're going for, that apple pie flavor. Apple, cinnamon, clove. That's that holiday feeling we're really shooting for with that.
And you also wet the lip of the serving vessel, and you put spice on the a la.
Yeah, it's a little cinnamon and sugar on the rim. It's almost like a margarita, but
yeah, margarita.
Yeah.
I can't remember things anymore. I do have my driver here, which is good. So Trey, what? Think back to your homebrewing roots again, and help out our homebrewers. Is there anything that we've left out? Any big tips that you struggled with as you were making cider at home, or things that you found out that you didn't realize needed to be known?
Aseptic technique. Be as clean as possible. That same goes with beer or anything you're fermenting. I had some that went sour and turned into vinegar, and all kinds of weird things happened. Stringy lactates would come in, cloudiness. All of it was because I was rushing things and wasn't as clean as I needed to be.
Yeah, if you're not going to boil the must, if you're not going to pasteurize the product that you're working with, you have to be extra careful.
Oh yeah, that it puts a little bit more onto you as far as the cleaning steps. Make sure all your utensils, your hands, everything you touch and everything you may think about touching, just go ahead and clean it. Have a little station. I finally just had a tarp and sanitized the tarp, put all my stuff on the tarp, had a table, laid out napkins, just kind of went a little bit probably further than I should, but after a few bad batches, you're like, I'm just going to go all the way.
Sounds like an episode of Dexter. A few people might get that. So, do you? Does the fact that you're not sanitizing your must, and you're wanting to get the yeast to have as big a head start as possible and to work as quickly as possible, does that affect your pitching rate? Do you pitch more yeast than say you would in a beer?
Yes, about double is what I do. That's just a good rule of thumb, I guess, because I'd always use a starter culture for my beer, and that just wasn't enough, especially when I tried some of the ale yeast. Going with the champagne yeast again, you can do the same aliquot of yeast as you would a normal one. They're just so robust and so fast acting. If you're going to go experimental with some ale yeast or some English ales and stuff like that, they do give some different flavor profiles. I actually started off doing 10 batches of 5 gallons each, did each one with a different yeast strain. It was amazing how different each one tastes just because of the yeast. They impart a huge flavor on your cider.
If you're going to use champagne yeast, it doesn't matter if you're over pitching, quote unquote, because you're not wanting to get flavor characteristics from the yeast. You're just wanting to get a good, clean, strong fermentation. So.
Correct. Yeah, just quick, dry fermentation. That's where we go with that.
So what's the next step in the future? I mean, you guys have started. You've started off stronger than you thought. What's the business plan now, Trey?
We want to get out to distribution next, but we have a huge focus on getting local apples right now. We really want to get local apples. We want to have them pressed locally. We're looking to get our own press, but with all three of us having full-time jobs, it's just not feasible for us to press our own apples at this point. So hopefully we can work with people. We have some hits that we're working on, people really looking into getting back in the apple industry. Awesome. So it's coming to fruition, and we're trying to be a big part of that.
Well, good luck on that. I think that would be awesome to revitalize apple growing here in Northwest Arkansas. And, and if you can turn it into great tasting cider like this, all the better.
Exactly, bring back an old industry and have some cider with it. So yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, good luck, and let us know. Keep us posted on how you're doing in the future. It'd be fun to come back and talk to you at the next step.
Yeah, will do, and thank y'all for coming by.
Thanks, Trey. Thanks, Susan.
You're welcome.
Well, thanks again to Trey. Susan and I took a bottle of the cider home that was back sweetened with the agave nectar. Very nice. As were they all. They were all very tasty ciders. One thing that we didn't cover in the interview with Trey was that the Arkansas legislature this summer passed a law allowing breweries to produce hard cider as well. So Black Apple Crossing may have some company in the cider market soon. And that should be some good news for apple producers in the area. More demand to reestablish an industry that has all but disappeared from our area. So good luck to Trey and his partners with Black Apple Crossing. We will be back. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form at basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our support link where you can throw a couple of bucks into the tip jar by subscribing financially to our podcasts. Be sure to check out our DVDs, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, and Introduction to Wine Kits. You can find them all on our site. You can get a free Basic Brewing bottle opener with any DVD combo, and you can check out our Basic Brewing shirts in the store as well. You can see a listing of the fine folks across the country who sell our DVDs on basicbrewing.com, and if there isn't a vendor in your area, you can order them online in our online shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody who's continued to click on our Amazon.com link. We appreciate the support there. Our featured products this week that were purchased through the link are 100% silk, woven, violet and lavender houndstooth self-tie bow tie, and Halloween kitten house flag. Thanks again, everybody. And remember, I can't tell who bought what, so no worries there. Just click on the Amazon.com logo on our site the next time you feel like Amazon shopping. We greatly appreciate your support. And don't forget you can also join the American Homebrewers Association or subscribe to Brew Your Own magazine through the associate links on basicbrewing.com. That's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. So long.